ultra Tuscan orange grapefruit. My God, America is imploding.
What's up, bitches? It's the Fanzone. They let me back. It's a fucking mistake, but I'm here. No, but for real, Tim could not be here today, so I'm here as a host judge thingy. I have no idea what I'm doing, as always, so I had to get the adults in the room to help me. Joining me tonight is Cody, who I ripped away from a Red Sox game. How you doing?
I mean, Tim told me about this last night, and I still forgot about it. So, I'm not much better. I'm glad he gave you the controls, because if it was me, we would not be live. So, I'm glad you're here.
It's fair. That makes one of us. Lucas, we ripped you away from a Red Sox game, also presumably, or the NFL draft, either. What are you? What are you feeling?
We have two Alabama players for the Patriots. They were both projected first-round picks. I'm pretty happy. We got to sit at 15, and we got the exact person we wanted. So life is good right now.
Have fun with Mac Jones. Anyway, we got two people who are here to debate. One of them is a pretentious hack. His name is Andrew James Barr. Barr, how are you feeling about this debate? What do you think about your odds? And are you supposed to be here today?
I think I'm gonna do good. I'm excited. I'm gonna do something that I tried last night. Didn't work then, but let's try this now. Hopefully this will win me some votes.
As long as you don't talk about role play, you'll be fine.
I don't have a collusion graphic for this one, so just imagine it in your minds. And his opponent tonight is Joe L. Jalapeno Harrison, according to your nickname on your StreamYard name. How are you doing? What are your odds in your mind? And are you supposed to be here today?
I apparently am supposed to be here. I don't know how I'm number 9. I don't know, but apparently I am. I think it's commonly forgotten that I am in fact half Mexican. I know I don't look it, but that is why I am El Jalapeno. I know Lucas is looking at me like I am a dirty liar, but
I'm part Native American, but I'm not claiming I am.
Sure. Okay, so without further ado, I don't really know what your seats are. So apparently Joe is 9, which means that Barr is 8. That's how math works. Okay, anyway, Tim said play a clip. So here's the clip. Let's fight, folks. Your teddy bear beats an orphan's ass. All right, let's get to round number 1. Round number 1. Well, the prep rounds work like this. You're gonna get the question, and then you each have a minute opening, 5-minute freeform, and a minute close, I believe. So we start with the first question, which was, I believe, I would assume it's drafted by Barr because he's a pretentious hack. The category of classics, Audrey Hepburn. And your question is the best Audrey Hepburn classic movie. So that is your question. So Barr, you will go first on this one, I believe. 1 minute when you start talking.
So the best Audrey Hepburn film, it's got thrills, it's got laughs, it's got romance, it's got everything that you want in a great movie, and that is Charade, directed by Stanley Donen, co-starring Cary Grant, Walter Matthau, James Coburn. This movie is stacked with talent, from the directing, from the acting, to the music, the cinematography, the stunts. It is just a fantastic ride to go on. Basically, Audrey Hepburn plays the wife of a man who apparently stole a lot of gold in the war, and a lot of men are after it. But there are so many twists and turns. It's very exciting. She doesn't know who to trust. She thinks that she can trust one person one moment. She learns that she can't the next moment. And it is just an exciting thrill ride. And I'm going to, stop right there.
Stop at 5 seconds early. So we'll go over to Mr. Harrison. What is the best Audrey Hepburn classic film? You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Oh, right. Much like my opponent said, it has to have laughs, it has to have thrills, it has to have romance, and for that, I went with Roman Holiday. Roman Holiday, directed by William Wyler, starring Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck. It is such just a classic piece of cinema, and it really just gets your heart feeling, and it's just a very fun adventure to go on with these characters. And when you see how even deceit and lies, there can still be a fun day and a fun time had there. And these two characters and their interactions with each other, even when she doesn't know his true identity, is brilliant. And the characters in it, the screenplay is sharply written. The acting is one of the best seminal performances of Audrey Hepburn's career, and the direction is amazing as well. And I will yield the rest of my time.
Both yielding time very early. All right, 5 minutes, folks. Free form. I'll come in when there's a minute left. Have at each other and be polite.
You said your movie has thrills. I don't think that's true at all.
The boat fight is not thrilling at all. You're gonna say that
boat fight is slapsticky. The boat fight is actually slapsticky. The way they do it, they incorporate sounds, and like the moment that she hits the guy with the guitar, they do the bwang moment. The comedy in this movie actually is the weakest part of this movie. The slapstick doesn't necessarily work. It actually kind of halts the movies when it happens.
No, it doesn't at all. The slapstick is actually very fun. And when you're talking about a movie that's talking about a holiday, you're wanting the fun, you're wanting you're wanting that fun, and you're wanting the lightheartedness, and the slapstick brings that in. It shows just you're having fun. Well, your movie wasn't even memorable by the studio. The studio didn't even take enough time to actually make sure it was produced properly, and it was released direct into public domain.
Well, just because something wasn't trusted by the studio at the time doesn't mean that a movie can't work. Like movies like The Evil Dead, like no one thought that would work. Plus, my movie's got everything. You've got the comedic scenes between Grant and Hepburn, who have amazing chemistry with the shower scene, and then you have that thrilling rooftop scene where you like think that he's gonna fall off this roof, but then he's able to like maneuver his way out. It's very Hitchcockian in its thrillingness, but it's also very romantic. As I said, the chemistry between them is actually stronger than the chemistry between her and Gregory Peck.
I would disagree. Her and Gregory Peck have amazing chemistry. In fact, Cary Grant was passed up on for Roman Holiday, and they went with Gregory Peck instead because they knew that of the chemistry. The chemistry between Joe and Princess Anne in this movie is one of the strongest points of the movie. Their interactions with each other, especially in the cafe where they're talking to each other, and he knows but she doesn't. Just that playfulness of him knowing that she's lying, but him going along with it for the fun of the situation and just wanting to interact and get with and know her.
So my movie does that exact same thing with Cary Grant's character all throughout, where he's not necessarily telling the truth about what he is, and he's like having fun with how she doesn't know what he actually is. Plus, the structure of my story actually works a little bit better. The setup to yours, it's lazy. That whole newsreel thing at the beginning is just lazy storytelling.
The newsreel isn't lazy storytelling because that was just a trope that was used during that time frame of movie making. It's not lazy. No, using a trope is not lazy storytelling. It is just having a good story convention of setting up your story is interesting. Your story also has a lazy convention in opening. Then with the whole, it's just like, oh, some money was stolen. Money stolen is a big thing that is in a lot of the thriller movies.
I'd like to say that that's not the setup of the movie. In the structure of a script, the setup of the movie is like the first 5 minutes. The setup of my movie is actually really interesting. You see a train rolling by, and it just like passes by the screen real quick, and then a dead body rolls out of it, and you immediately go, okay, I know exactly what we're in for. With yours, it's kind of like, here's his princess. Here's what she's doing. This is it, folks.
But here's the whole thing. Introducing the character that way, it makes for you want to be able to connect with the character instantly. That's what that entrance does. Yours is a small attention grabber, but it doesn't really get you interested or invested in the characters. What Roman Holiday does is get you invested in both Joe and Princess Anne from their introductions. They are not introduced together because you want to be able to know and get a sense for who they are as characters. And once you get a really good sense for them, when they're brought together, that makes the interactions just so much more tight.
Yeah, but the interactions between Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn and Charade is also really well paced. Like as I said, the entire time he's lying about who he is throughout the entirety of the movie. And when she finds out at the end, it's super charming and it's relatable. But even then, at the beginning when you find them, she's like she doesn't have a care in the world. But then the moment that she finds out that there's a problem, who's the first person there but Cary Grant's character? Plus, honestly, as I said, the thrills in this movie are amazing. The theater scene at the end is just harrowing. Like when you hear the footsteps and you see like the clockwork going in Cary Grant's mind as to which trap door to pull at the right time. It's amazing. Your movie kind of doesn't have that moment. It's the same thing except with halts from the comedy.
It doesn't have halts from the comedy though. Your movie relies a lot on playing this who can you trust game, and that doesn't make for a really strong movie. When your movie is all about who can and can't you trust, it becomes very less interesting when you're only guessing who you can and can't trust. It doesn't make for it, and if you know who you can trust at the end.
Time. All right. So that's the end of Freeform. We're going to go ahead and go into closings, starting with Joe. 1 minute when you start talking.
All right. So as Barr brought up, his movie relies a lot on it being the whole who can you trust, who can't you trust movie, and that's very interesting. But then it gets really close to the point where at the end she pretty much knows she can only trust Cary Grant's character. But my movie has more than just you can't trust anybody, because while that is interesting at parts, it's not interesting for an entire movie. With mine, you get to see two characters enjoying their time together, really enjoying his company and having fun. And at the end, when her last words to Gregory Peck's character Joe is had fun. It's so poignant. The fact that she was able to just take away from being a princess for a day and really getting to spend time just doing what she wants to do. And that's something that we all can relate to. When you're talking about relatability, just stepping away from your life and all your responsibilities for one day and getting to do whatever you want to do is the peak of being a relatable content and relatable comedy and a relatable movie. And that's why it's the best.
Time. All right. We go to Mr. Barr. 1 minute for your closing. Time begins when you start talking.
First of all, I'd like to say that Joe said the who can you trust thing isn't interesting, then suddenly he thinks it is. And now that he's backpedaling again, there's Murder on the Orient Express, there's The Thing, so the who can you trust movie actually works really well. With my movie, you get a lot of everything. You get funny comedy between two great actors who have amazing chemistry. You have the thrills of the theater scene and the rooftop scene. You have clever twists, and you never know what's going to happen. The realization of where the money is, it's a brilliant moment. It's a smart idea. All of the acting in this movie is great. There's no awkward moments to halt it, like the moped scene or the housemaid scene that go absolutely nowhere in Roman Holiday. Plus, it's just a better script. It's a better structured movie. So because of that, Charade is the better Audrey Hepburn film, and it's even a better Audrey Hepburn performance. And I yield my time.
Perfect. Because you were almost out of it, and I forgot to come in and tell you. All right. Great job. A1 on my part. We'll go ahead. Judges, write down your thingies. We do that. So.
Oh, we have boards. I don't have
boards are
yeah. We're supposed to have a board.
You're supposed to have
Nobody
a board.
told me this. Nobody tells me anything.
Yes, that's totally fair.
I thought Lucas was just saying that he was bored, and I got real offended.
No, I can never
that too. I mean that too.
All right. So
we can just go to Lucas first and then get a board before the next round. Jeez.
I can grab a pad of papers right over there.
Come prepared, man.
Lucas, who are you voting for and why?
So the biggest thing that I kept consistently seeing was when Barr would critique Joe's response was just a rejection of the critique and not a counterpoint. That was a consistent trend. And then Barr makes a really good point in his final clothing, which is that Joe flip-flops on the who you can trust as a concept is interesting or not. And I think just made a better overall argument. And I think just because of the nature of picking the category kind of kept Joe on the back foot the entire time. And I would go Barr.
Okay. I'll go next. I also picked Barr. I think that Barr made a good argument in terms of on the attack And the defense, I never really hear much of a defense for Joe's pick. A lot of attacks, and Barr smacked down a lot of Joe's attacks, so I lean Barr. Cody, where would you have leaned and why?
If this fight proved anything, that Audrey Hepburn is kind of overrated and Catherine is the better Hepburn, I'm going to go with Barr.
I mean, I think everybody already thinks she's the better Hepburn. I don't think that's actually
I disagree, but I will say that it is a very tough fight.
She's a great counterpart, but the rest is, you guys mainly talked about the stars that they're with, so.
Well, because she's great in both! Like,
Yeah.
Point, Cody! Okay, we're going to go round number 2. Round number 2, which was drafted by Joe in the category of Marvel/MCU subcategory of the Captain America trilogy. And your question is, what is the best line in a Captain America movie? So we will drop the judges out, and we will start with Mr. Harrison. You have 1 minute for your opening. Time begins when you start talking.
All right, so the line I chose is Steve's line in The Winter Soldier. For as long as I can remember, I just wanted to do what was right. I guess I'm not quite sure what that is anymore. This line in that movie, it really shows Captain America's progression, where he had always thought that whatever he was doing was the right thing, but now in this moment, he doesn't know what's right anymore, because the people he thought he could trust aren't people who he can trust anymore. And so it's shifting his entire worldview, and it's creating this arc for him. And the moment he says that line, we see that this man who we thought was infallible and was told to be infallible is in fact fallible, and it humanizes him, and it makes him such that more depth of a character when we realize that our hero, who we thought was always the person people could look to, and he knew what was right and he knew exactly what to do, he no longer realizes that anymore. A moment of self-doubt actually makes him that much more interesting and that much stronger of a character, and this line is everything that embodies him in that movie. Is he doesn't know what to do is right, but he will still try.
Time. All right, we will go over to Mr. Barr. You have 1 minute for your opening. Time begins when you start talking.
I picked a line that not only defines him as a character in that moment, I picked him a line that defines his character throughout not only the Captain America films, I picked a line that defines him throughout the entire MCU. That line being, whatever happens, you must promise me one thing, that you will stay who you are, not a perfect soldier, but a good man. And that's from Captain America, the First Avenger. This captures the entire spirit of the character throughout everything, from his movies, the MCU, and even going on into the TV world. It is a quote that is not only poignant, but it is delivered at the exact right time in the movie, and I will yield the rest of my time to go further into detail.
Okay, yielding a full 19 seconds. So we'll bring in the other two. All right, other two. Bring in Joe. All right, 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Joe, the problem with your line is that it works for Captain America in the moment for that film. This is a perfect my quote is the perfect definition of this character. He is a good man. He's not just a good soldier. As we learned in the recent Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series, just because you're a good soldier doesn't mean that serum will work in your favor.
Yes, but the whole thing is, my line is not just for that moment, because in The Winter Soldier, he starts realizing that he doesn't always know what is right anymore. And the fact that we're seeing him no longer be this infallible man is very good. And your line while it does describe him as a character, it's not the strongest line. When your line is all it's doing is describing a character, that's more of an expedition dump. You should show what your character is, not tell me who he is. And what you're saying in that moment is telling me that he is a good man. Show me he's a good man.
It's not just the definition of a character, it's the basic through line of the theme of Captain America, all of the movies. The serum is basically like letting him know ahead of time, hey, as long as you stay to who you are, a good person, this will work out in your favor. With your moment, let's be honest, he knows what's right in that moment, because we know that what he thinks is right in that moment is the right thing, because we know that Hydra's behind a lot of all of this. So in that moment, that kind of is moot.
No, the moment isn't kind of moot because what it's showing is that he's struggling with knowing what's right, and the fact that we can see him be human, be that fallible person. Because what we need to know is that it's that moment where we're stripping away this godlike sense of infallibility that has been with Captain America throughout the first Avenger and the Avengers movie. It's showing that he is a person who, at the end of the day, is still struggling has that internal moral compass struggle of he thinks he knows what's right, but he doesn't know if it's the right thing to do. But it shows that he is much more complicated than what your line degrades him to, which is just a good man. Because it shows that he is more complex than just being that he's a good man.
I think you're confusing the phrase "good man" with being a goody two shoes and being a perfect person. That's not the thing at all. You're bringing up this idea of your line making it proven that he's a fallible person, that of his internal moral compass. That's what the idea of being a good man is about. It's struggling with those the things inside, but knowing what the right thing to do in the end is. So my line actually is just a better version of your line.
No, your line isn't a better version of my line because while your line just says he is a good man, my line is what's showing that he is a good man because it's showing that he's having these internal struggles. Your line is just saying, "Yep, he is a good man." That's all it does is someone looking at him and saying, "This is a good man." My line is telling you that not only is Steve Rogers a good man, but he is a great man because he has a struggle with inside himself, and your line reduces him to just being just like, oh, you're always going to do the right thing. But my line shows he doesn't always know what is the right thing.
No, it is a plea to always do the right thing. It's not the doctor going, "You're a good man. This is going to work in your favor and you're going to be an amazing person." No, it's the doctor basically saying, just remember, be a good person and this will work out in your favor. It's a reminder and a plea. It's not somebody telling you, "Hey, this is a good person. You better look out for this guy."
But if it was that reminder, then that delivery needs to be more like a reminder. That delivery is more of just him kind of reiterating to Steve what we already have known and been shown.
1 minute.
It is like a reminder because he just talks about the Red Skull trying to do the same thing and then not working out in his favor. But this is also a line that carries through, as I said, throughout the entire MCU. The end of Avengers Endgame. When he's like picking up the hammer and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I get it." And then, as I said, Falcon, Winter Soldier and the Falcon, the whole thing with Wyatt Russell's character is that he is a good soldier, but it's not necessarily a good man, so it doesn't work out in his favor.
So what you keep bringing in the other, but we're talking about the best line in the Captain America trilogy, and the best line in the trilogy is always going to be a line that when you look at the moment in that trilogy, that is what stands out to you. There are better lines even in your movie. His line in the Broken Alley, "I can do this all day." That introductory line is such a stronger line because that's when we really get a sense for Steve Rogers as a person. Your line just reminds us what we've already been shown throughout the movie.
All right, we will start with Barr. You have 1 minute for your closing when you start talking.
So Joe is bringing up the idea that, it's only about the trilogy. Okay, well, let's do that. Mine works better for the entire trilogy. Yours works for that movie in that moment. The idea of Steve Rogers being a good man is the antithesis of who he is as a character, and it reminds us to be a good person ourselves. Your line in that moment is basically him just like wrapping his brain around like what's happening in the moment. It's the moment. My line captures the entire trilogy that you want me to argue about. So because of that, and the moments that I had already argued about the doctor, it's a reminder to Steve. The doctor just warned him about what happened to the other guy. And it's Steve listening to him and taking it all in. It is a great moment. It is a great line that has actually stood the test of time outside the trilogy, outside the MCU, and just movies in general.
Time. All right. We're going to go to Joe. 1 minute for your closing. Time begins when you start talking.
So what my line does is it really shows the unflappability of his structure. He is struggling now with what is the right thing to do, and it goes on throughout the entirety of the trilogy. It isn't just that moment. Even in Civil War, this line of him not knowing what's right to do because he always wants to do what he thinks is right, but he's not sure anymore, and it carries on. Yours is just, please remember to be a good man. He's always going to be a good man. He didn't need that reminder. That reminder was more for the audience. And when you're just doing something for the audience and not the stakes of what's going on in your movie, it's not that important of a line. My line is what it does. It's internal in the movie. It's showing that in the series, in this world, Steve Rogers is struggling with what is and what isn't right, and now is on that moral quandary of figuring out what he can do, and that is why it's the strongest line and the best line in the Captain America trilogy.
All right, we will bring in the judges. Lucas, did you get the pen and paper or not?
I have the pen and paper.
Good man. All right, we'll bring in the the players. Cody, I let you go last time, so you'll go first this time. Where are you leaning away?
I just want Steve Rogers to know that he's a good boy. Whatever he's done, it's all right. He is a good boy.
Good boy.
That's basically what this entire argument was. This is a really weird fight.
Sure.
Because I think there was a clear-cut winner. But I feel like the argument was defend the entire time and not really throw any barbs until the end against Joe's. So I went with Joe on this just for the fact that Barr was able to just he had to keep defending that Steve Rogers was a good old boy. And you're a good boy. So, yeah.
I'll go. I went Barr. I think Barr's arguments, I think none of Joe's attacks landed, and then the one attack Barr needed to throw at the end was the one that hit, and then Joe made 1 point the entire time that Barr defended. So I think it worked out slightly in Barr's favor on that one. Good points though. And Joe. Fuck. Lucas. Holy fuck.
I'm voting for myself.
All right, so let's get this through. I also voted for Barr, and for me, it's exactly what you said. I literally wrote down as I was watching this: Joe is getting stuck on good man. He's focusing too much on it, and that was the problem with his entire argument: is that he got stuck on this one point, and he hammered it like 15 times, and Barr basically defended it 15 times, and then when you get to the end of the argument, you're trying to figure out who won. Joe basically doesn't have anything in his column because he's had 15 critiques rejected. And then all Barr had to do at the end to get this win was go. That's a quote for that movie. It's not for the entire trilogy. And at that point, it was a pretty clear-cut winner.
All right, so Barr will take the 2-0 lead. All right, question number 3. Barr leads 2-0. We're going to stay in the world of fandom, where Steve Rogers has emphatically been proven to be a good boy. And your question was drafted from the category of Fandom Oscars, which was selected by Andrew James Barr, star of Creed 2. Worst fandom movie nominated for an Oscar. What is the worst fandom movie to be nominated for an Oscar? So we will drop the judges, and we'll start with Barr. 1 minute. Time begins when you start talking.
Hey, kids. You like James Bond? You like witty one-liners? You like really fun and exciting action sequences? You like strong villains? You like smart characters? Well, Moonraker has none of that shit, so get the fuck out. Basically, this is a movie that saw Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind and went, oh, we can do that. We don't have to be a James Bond movie. We can be a cheap B science movie. And it's awful. It breaks its own rules a ton of times. A lot of these characters are dumbasses. It's really lazy direction. And honestly, the music, the characters, just all of it, it's just stupid and lame. And honestly, I think I know of a way to fix it, but I'm gonna save that for my time.
Okay, we're gonna drop Barr. We're gonna bring in Joe. 1 minute for your opening time begins when you start talking.
You like ruining characters. You like pretty much saying, let's make Suicide Squad. It is 2016 Suicide Squad is the worst movie. It is offensive to the source material of the comic books. It's offensive to look at. The CGI is cheesy and it's weird. It is just not a fun time. When you want a Suicide Squad movie, you want it to be fun And it's not fun. It's just very awkward. It's very stilted. The dialogue's stilted. The characters are stilted. Everything's very one-dimensional. And it's just so hard to watch through and just so hard to sit down and watch. I couldn't even get through a rewatch of it for this. It's hard for me not to sit down and be able to watch and enjoy a movie. But it's just, Suicide Squad is just that so sour tasting in my mouth. It makes me want to vomit.
All right, both conceding 5 seconds of time. Now that turns into 5 minutes of time. You don't get the 10 seconds back. Go at it.
I would like to bring up this idea that you said of it ruins characters. Margot Robbie and Jai Courtney actually were so beloved that they're actually coming back. So this idea of ruining characters is wrong. But with mine, it does ruin the characters. James Bond is supposed to be this charming guy with witty one-liners. And one of the lines in this movie was, where were you? I fell out of an airplane without a chute, because he actually did that. That's not witty at all. That's not James Bond. Who is this guy? It's old Roger Moore, who can't even do a fight scene right anymore.
Okay, so no, but that is witty. It's called dry humor, and dry humor is witty. The fact that my movie, it's straight up. So two characters were beloved, but it ruins so many more. It ruins the entire fact of a Suicide Squad movie, which is supposed to be a fun people who are dying to save the world. The fact that they had to reboot the entire movie for this, for a sequel for it, just shows how bad it is. Moonraker is at least fun and cheesy, and you can actually sit and watch it and turn your brain off and just be like, this is a fun movie. You don't get that with Suicide Squad.
You can absolutely do that with Suicide Squad because of the entertaining characters. As I said, Margot Robbie, Jai Courtney, the Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and Amanda Plummer are all really engaging characters. Your movie is actually not that bad when it comes to the direction and the cinematography. I can still watch it and be like really interested in what's happening on the screen. With mine, it is some of the laziest direction. There's no interesting camera work. The lighting is just basic. It's like fluorescent lighting. It's like still shots, and like it's boring.
Yeah, and the same with Suicide Squad. It's not really interesting to look at because it's just a bunch of darkness and a bunch of bad CGI and a bunch of characters who are just thrown in a puddle and have to do that. Moonraker at least has what you want out of a James Bond movie. It does have wittiness, and it does have the exploration aspect of James Bond, and he's doing his spy stuff. You get to see that in Moonraker. You don't get what you want out of a Suicide Squad movie is relegated to the third act, which isn't even that well. It's fighting generic monsters in a bad CGI belly dancing character.
It's actually about the teamwork between these villains and how they work together, which is actually done really well. And also, I want a space in my James Bond movie. No, that's not what I want. Also, you know what? I know how to fix Moonraker though, because what you do in order to make this script work is you replace all of the characters except for the villains with the Looney Tunes. You cannot tell me that boat scene where Jaws falls off the edge of the waterfall is not fucking Daffy Duck, and James Bond in that moment is not Bugs Bunny. It is not a James Bond movie. It is a Looney Tunes movie in space. They even rip off the music from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The moment I heard that, my jaw dropped. You are not a James Bond movie. You're terrible.
What you're describing, though, is still at least a fun movie to watch. Suicide Squad isn't fun. It only has a couple interesting moments, but Moonraker as a whole is still interesting to watch. And you can actually have fun when you're watching Moonraker and at least enjoy something. With Suicide Squad, if you try to watch it for any enjoyment, you are going to start pulling your hair out. You're going to get so frustrated because it's worse. Suicide Squad had potential to be great when you saw what they had coming to it, and it couldn't pull it off. Moonraker was already at a time when James Bond really was kind of iffy, so it wasn't going to be as good as people expected it to be in the first place, but at least it's still fun and entertaining, and you cannot say that about the Suicide Squad without lying to yourself.
No, I can, because there are a couple of interesting moments in this film that I would like to talk about. Amanda Plummer, like her introduction when she's eating that steak, just the way Viola Davis is doing that, and like the shots that they're using, super interesting. The bar scene is actually a lot more deeper and interesting than you're giving it credit for. Like, you get a lot more deeper into these characters in this really interesting setting. And also, one of the best scenes in the movie is when Harley breaks that window and she just steals that purse. And Rick Flag's like, what is wrong with you people? That is really funny. And the whole idea of like Captain Boomerang and this pink unicorn, there are so many funny, interesting ideas in this movie that actually do land. Whereas mine has got a lot of stupidity. It breaks its own rules. At one point, Bond's in that thing where she says they pass out at 7, but it reaches 12 and he's still like awake.
No, that's just showing he's a badass is all.
No, it's not. It breaks its own rules because he's still a human. You're giving it the John McClane problem where he becomes a superhuman when he's an actual human. Bullshit. Yeah, you can count down all you want.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Wow. All right. Whose question was this? Bar's question. All right.
Yeah.
Barr, you're out of here. Joe, you have 1 minute for your closing time against when you start talking.
All right, Moonraker is not the worst movie because it at least is still fun and enjoyable to watch. Even while you say that there are some moments, but the whole thing is moments aren't what make a movie. If you have to pull out and pick apart moments and say those are the moments you want to watch, that's not really a smart thing you have to do. You don't want to have to pull apart and piecemeal your movie, and you would have to do that to even get any semblance of enjoyment out of Suicide Squad. But Moonraker, you can sit down, turn your brain off, and just be like, this is still an enjoyable movie. But Suicide Squad is insulting to the source material, it is insulting to its audience, it is insulting to the intelligence of its fans, and you can only pull out certain moments to enjoy, and not as a whole movie can you enjoy, and that's why it's the worst. Moonraker, you can still just turn off your brain and watch it and enjoy it. And the fact of the matter is, it's not if you have to sit around and piecemeal a movie, you're not ever going to actually be able to enjoy it fully.
All right. Time. We'll go over to Barr. 1 minute for your closing time begins when you start talking.
My movie is insulting to its audience because it treats them like they're stupid kids. The whole Dr. Goodhead thing. Goodhead is one of the worst James Bond names for a Bond woman ever. He also is like, a woman who's a scientist? Wow, okay, Bond. There's the stupid shootout in space, which looks absolutely terrible. Jaws falls in love with a woman and becomes a good guy. This is not James Bond. You are not trusting your audience to get what a good James Bond movie is. You're trying to trick them into thinking that it's a Star Wars film. With yours, you have really interesting characters that are actually really well crafted with with how they function. You have the shootout in the alleyway, which is actually super exciting. When Amanda Plummer is actually going over all of the characters, it's actually shot and directed and stylized in a really interesting way, and it's fun. And all of these other great characters that are coming back.
Time. Back was really loud in my ears. All right. I'd also just like to fact check that her name is Amanda Waller. That's actually getting really annoying, that entire fight. Also, shouts out to Tim McCullough, who wasn't here today. But the answer to one of the greatest fandom questions ever written was from this movie. And the answer was making love in 0G, also known as porking for fucking in space, is one of the best answers to a question ever. We'll bring in the players. And Lucas, since you went third, we'll start with you.
So the thing I keep getting stuck on is Joe keeps saying Moonraker is fun if you turn your brain off. The problem I keep running into is Joe never gives details about what is fun in Moonraker. Barr, when he's critiquing Suicide Squad and saying it's fun in moments, is at least able to bring up specific themes, characters, and scenes. I get what Joe is going for, but it never worked for me because he was unable to make it detailed. So I would again vote Barr.
Cody, where are you leaning away? You're muted.
That's the one for the episode, folks.
There it is.
I don't think Oscars were brought up at any point, which was okay, but I think that was part of the conversation. The thing is, I'm with Lucas on this one because there was no thing, even though I don't think the steak eating scene is boom, mind blowing, but that was brought up today. And I don't think there was ever any counterpoints in the sense there's problems with Margot Robbie and all these players are still coming back if they were terrible. He kind of just beat him at every point. And one of these movies didn't affect my decision. Made me hate cinema for a good 3 weeks. So, but I'm going with Barr, and yeah, it was Moonraker that made me hate cinema.
Well, I also would have gone Barr, so that ends today's match. Barr wins by way of knockout. So congrats, Barr. Good game, gentlemen. We'll go to our winner second because I'm going to snub him for a moment because I forget how life works. We'll start with our unfortunate loser today, Joe. You did a decent job arguing your points. A knockout always looks a lot worse on paper than it actually is. Trust me, as someone who's been dealt 2 of them, I feel you. How do you feel about your game today?
It's what happened. What happens was, I agree with, as you guys were saying, Barr kept throwing punches and he kept me on the defensive for a lot of it, and I didn't come with enough ammunition. I brought a knife to a gunfight is essentially what happened tonight. Barr had loaded six bullets, and I had a Swiss Army knife that I was trying to cut them with, and I was like, hold on, wait for me to cut this bullet and throw it back at you, and that's never a good game to be playing. And then quite literally, I had outside distractions. I forgot to lock my door, so I had little children running in and out of my room and kept throwing off my game. That is not an excuse for what happened tonight. I should have still been able to rally, but I couldn't. So yeah, it's all on me. I did not perform as well as I could have or should have. Didn't come as prepared for it, and when we saw what happens when that happens, you get knocked out.
Fair. Well, that will conclude your participation in the Fanzone tournament. But I believe you will be back this season. Is there someone you'd like to play in the Fanzone division?
I think Cody just shook his head no that my record, I'm not going to be back this season.
No, because the tournament runs pretty much the whole time because we only do 2 matches a month.
I'm staring at
But you'll be back
next game.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's the same. This is what happened last season too, where I played. I got knocked. I notoriously get knocked out the first round of the tournament. It happens. So whoever I play in the first round of the tournament next year, I hope I can beat them and at least get to round 2.
Fair. All right. Well, we will thank you for your participation, and we will go to our winner today, Andrew Barr. You have won. Another thing. That must feel good. How do you feel? You win a lot, is all I say.
I feel demeaned. That's how I feel. I feel good. There were 2 questions that I was really nervous about fighting. Roman Holiday is my all-time favorite Audrey Hepburn film, so having to try to find literally anything about that was painful, and I hate my life. And luckily, we didn't have to argue the other one. But yeah, I feel good. There's a few spots I could have probably done better, but Joe was a good competitor, and he brought up some things that I wasn't necessarily ready for. So good job to you, Joe. And I'm excited to move on.
Fair. Speaking of moving on, you are very familiar with the name I'm about to say that you play in the next round. You may or may not be co-managed by a certain bearded Pittsburghian named Kurt Kolakowski.
Oh, shit.
Who you'll be facing in the next round. Do you have any words for your opponent?
Oh, this has been a long time coming. I can't wait to kick that Pittsburghese ass of yours.
Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh, I believe, is going to be branded on the thumbnail somewhere, maybe in tiny 10 print font in the corner so no one can see it, but it might be there. But congratulations on your win. We'll see you in the next round. Final thoughts from our judges before we send you back to Boston watching in drafts.
Yeah, it was. Joe has said the most realist thing ever is like, I brought a knife to a gunfight. Well, fair enough. Lock your doors next time. You might have a better shot. And I can't wait for Kirk versus Barr. That'll be great.
It's gonna be a great one. Lucas, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough to give somebody a 3-0 loss, especially when you don't think it's tough because I don't think Joe did a bad job. He just was consistently a step behind Barr. Barr just had more facts. His arguments were more focused and more structured. And it was just like, it was the small details that Barr just kept winning on. It was making sure that you had the little things that help you win them every point. And, that's what happens. And, yeah, Kirk Barr should be a good match.
Should be a good one. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys real soon with another great fan zone match. And cue the talking Bostonian bear.
That's my bad. I was sending a tweet.